welcome to the Momversation Club, the podcast born out of the idea that every mom deserves a tribe. I'm Claire Strong.
And I'm Christina Streckmeyer. We're two moms just like you, navigating the chaotic and challenging and often isolating world of motherhood.
Yeah, it can be really tough out there, and it's said that it takes a village to raise a child, but we want to know, where the F is that village?
It's a question that resonates with so many of us who find ourselves raising children, managing careers, and trying to maintain our identities, often with a sense of isolation.
But we're here to remind you that you're not alone. The Momversation Club is your village, a place where you feel valued, appreciated, and most importantly, understood.
We believe that by sharing our experiences, successes, and struggles, we can create a virtual village for all you amazing mamas out there.
So join us every week for an honest, raw, and relatable discussion about all aspects of motherhood, including the stuff that you just can't tell anyone else.
So if you've ever asked yourself where the F is the village, then you found your tribe. So let's get into it.
Hi, Christina.
Hey, Claire. How's it going on your side of the woods over there?
I'm doing good. How's farm life treating you?
It's farming. We are at the end of harvest and the leaves are falling as I look outside to my backyard, and it's gorgeous. I love this time of year. It's just so pretty.
Do
outside.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because in England, autumn, as we call it, you call it fall here, but autumn's very pronounced. And here it's a little more subtle, I think. But yeah. I still love this time of year here. And actually, we have a lot of color on the trees here in San Diego. It is very much, autumn. The leaves are falling, they're turning orange. Yeah, it's pretty.
It's nice. I think it's a good reminder of the end of the year, right? Like things are shifting and turning, and then they're gonna fall off and be reborn. And it's just, I like the trees.
I love it. That's a great analogy. And actually, I'm saying it's fall. It's not. It's winter. It just feels like fall here. That's the thing.
I'm like, it's whatever you feel in your heart, Claire.
Oh, I love it. That's such a nice thing to say. Yeah. So listen, because we scrapped the mother fails of the week and we're just going to focus on mum wins. I was just wondering what's gone well for you this week, because I think we should, before we get into our subject today, because it is a little more serious, I want to have a nice, uplifting moment to start us off. So what did you do well this week?
Sure. Well, I will say I'm actually looking at my backyard. My babysitter just took, we have a babysitter that comes to help me record. And she took her outside to my win, which is a new little play structure for toddlers. So we have a slide swing set for my older daughter that we bought when the baby came so that she'd have her own space to go play and stuff. And the baby's too little for it because she's only one, even though she looks like a 2.5-year-old. So we bought like a little toddler version to go right next door. It has a little slide and a swing. So we bought that and we set it up this weekend, my husband and I, and we did it without killing each other, which was great because anybody who opens up a big box and has instructions, you can know how stressful it is, where you're like, where's this screw? Where's this bolt? It is up.
Well, I'm impressed because anytime I get something that's supposed to be easy to put up, you order this flat back. For example, the desk that I do our podcast from, I ordered it off one of those sites. I think it was, what's that one? Wayfair. You can get everything from there. Yeah, I love Wayfair.
That's what I need.
That's the one. I love Wayfair. And I got it in a sale, actually. So I only paid like $60 or something silly for this desk. It's really nice. However, it obviously comes flat pack. So you've got to assemble it yourself. And this was the only time it's ever been pretty straightforward. And it actually was a fairly easy build. Usually,
that's so nice.
Well, certainly in my experience, you open up the box, you're missing screws, there's something damaged. It takes 15 people to do it. It weighs 30 tons, so there's no possibility you could even do it on your own or move it to where it needs to be. But this one was nice and light. Maybe that's because it was cheap and it's like very light material, so it's not
maybe you're just lucky with furniture now. That's just your streak.
Maybe lady looking down on me when it comes to cheap furniture purchases.
Well, that's not your win though. What's your win for this week?
Well, I'm quite pleased with myself, but it is a little pathetic in equal measures. I finally took down my Halloween decorations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I know I deserve this one. Well, the thing is, they look quite cute, and I'm not a huge Halloween decoration fan. I don't go crazy. Um, but we got some new ones just a few days before Halloween, and because they've not been up as long as the others, they just look kind of nice. And then the other thing is, I think that the spider's web stuff that you like, that woolly white stuff,
Yeah.
it looks like snow. So
Repurpose
so
it.
yeah, so now that's going to stay where it is because it looks like it's been snowing on my gate, even though we live by the beach in San Diego and no one's ever seen snow. But
That's
I think it's
genius. You know
nice.
what? That's a whole market. You can go on the 50% off clearance, grab all the spider
Mhm.
webs and repurpose it into snow. You heard it here first.
Well, yeah, because seriously, it looks like, I mean, these spider webs look more like snow to me anyway. It's the same bloody thing. It's just, I suppose it depends how you arrange it. If you make it look more snowy, then obviously it's going to double up for Christmas. If you make it look all spaced out like a spider's web, then yes, it's time limited. But anyhow, we're into upcycling in this house.
Oh man, just doing your part to save the world, Claire.
Oh yes, quite. That's exactly what I had in mind when I didn't take my Halloween decorations down for a few
Yeah.
weeks. But yeah, so it's a silly win really, but it was on my to-do list and I did it, so I'll
You know
take it.
what? Yeah, we got to take the wins that we can take, okay? Like
Easy,
that's a
huh?
win and a half. There we go.
Thank you very much. I
Good
thought so
job.
too. I'm so pleased you've endorsed my win of the week. Um,
Oh my
but
god.
listen, what are we chatting about today? Because it's a little more serious today, and it's something that
Yeah.
we both felt that we needed to tackle, and it's something that actually you guys at home wanted us to too. So, Christina, what are we
Yeah.
chatting about today?
Yeah, this was an audience suggestion. So when we first started our podcast, we put it out to the peoples and we said, "Hey, what do you guys want to hear? What do you want? What's important to you? What's topics that matter?" And the topic of mommy wine culture came up. And for those who are unfamiliar, because there was a comment on our page when we asked about feedback for this,
Yeah.
they go, "What is that?"
Hmm.
Mommy wine culture, if you Google it,
Hmm.
shares a little bit about basically it's the notion that moms need a wine, you know, in their hand, a wine glass, to get through the stressfulness that is motherhood. And it's supported by kind of a large industry of t-shirts and mugs and all sorts of stuff that say like mommy needs her juice or like mama needs a drink or it's 5 o'clock somewhere. um,
Yes.
but this one's specific to moms. There's like a mom subset of this kind of paraphernalia, for lack of a better word. And so our viewer wanted us to kind of talk about it in a way where we could share our thoughts on it and what we think. So that's kind of, and we did a little digging, right, Claire?
We did. Obviously, I'm a journalist by trade, and so I can't help but research things. And when I researched this particular topic, in addition to us personally both having either experienced this ourselves or we know people that are going through this now, it was very interesting. All the research that I did, all the articles I wrote, all the medical articles that I read, all alluded to the same thing, and that is that over the last few years, particularly since COVID, there has been a marked increase in the number of women who are having health complications stemming from alcoholism and also drug addiction. So, addiction in general, particularly alcohol, though. And that wasn't historically the case.
Yeah.
Now, there's no exact answer as to why, but some of the factors that I read about in doing this research, so COVID was one of them, the stress that was, you know, put on a lot of women during COVID for very many reasons, that forced a lot of women to turn to something, whether it be wine, as we're discussing here,
Or
or drugs
alcohol
or
in
whatever.
general.
Yeah, alcohol in general, just to get by, just to get through the day. Also, we've discussed this before in previous episodes, but the pressure of being a mum and also being a working woman, and that too. So a lot of working women who may also be juggling the responsibilities at home, because still disproportionately women take on more responsibilities in the home than men. And so all of those are contributing factors. And I wonder as well, Christina, this wasn't particularly mentioned in any of the articles I read during my research, but I wonder if there's still a stigma. There's a bit of a stigma going on here, because women are supposed to just have their you know what together and just get on with it. And it's almost expected of men to relax at the end of the day with a drink. But then when women do that, it's frowned upon. And so
Yeah.
maybe women are just starting to find their voice and actually reach out for help, which is why we're seeing an increase in the number um, of women suffering from alcoholism, for example. I don't know. That's my theory. That wasn't something that I gleaned necessarily from research, but it's a very interesting topic. And Christina, can you start us off by sharing a little bit about your personal experience with this?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I shared with Claire, I'm really excited about someone brought this to us
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that I know very well. When I got married and had my first daughter, I was pretty young. I was like in my early 20s. And I
Mm-hmm.
went from this like period of drinking like heavily during college and like having fun and dancing on tables. And drinking was social. Like it was a thing that I went out and did with friends. When I became a mom and, after the pregnancy and everything, obviously not drinking during the pregnancy, but when I became a mom and I had a young child, I realized that there was a lot of women that we could bond together by drinking. It was kind of my
Mm-hmm.
first, I talked about a mommy group actually that we first, we found together around 10 months. My daughter was 10 months old. We went to a mommy
Mm-hmm.
and me, and then we ended up having like a get together outside of that. That was a wine night. It was kind of like this thing where we all got together and we drank some wine. And it was a thing that we did. And that was fine and great. We went out and got social drinking. But I found myself as my daughter became a toddler and became more and more energy draining. And like
Yeah.
my days started getting longer and
Mm-hmm.
even more so that I found myself drinking at home. And it
Mm.
started out with a glass to like wind down, like wind down.
Yes.
Um, and then it started turning into 2 glasses. And then it
Mm.
was 3 glasses. And then I found myself drinking like a half bottle and then a bottle. And when my daughter was diagnosed with autism around that time, I found myself drinking like very large family size bottles like every other day.
Mm.
And I didn't realize how crazy it had gotten until I was taking out the recycling one day and it was just full of wine bottles and it was embarrassing. Like I was taking it to the sidewalk and it was just like a bunch of wine bottles, and I did not have a party. It was not something where I had friends over and we all just had fun and drank wine together. It was me after my daughter had gone to bed just drinking by myself. Um, and it was hard to kind of face that, but I also was like in this weird spot because I didn't feel like I was an alcoholic. Like I could stop
Mm-hmm.
at any time if I wanted to, but I felt like encouraged, like it was something that was normalized. It was something that the culture was all saying was okay to do. Like we were all like having a hard day. Oh, mama, you deserve that glass of wine, or margarita time. Like it's just a thing. And a few years ago, I decided to get sober and I actually made the decision.
Why, Christina? What had brought you to that point?
So it's funny because I was never really I got healthy as far as like not drinking when I was trying to lose weight because I realized it was a
Mm.
real stopper when it came to losing weight, and I wanted
Yeah.
to be skinny more than I wanted the wine. So I put a kibosh on the wine for some time, and because it had been such a long time without it, when I brought it back in, it was able to come in on just social occasions. Then I met my husband who is sober completely. And I decided, I don't really need this. It doesn't add value to my life. I don't need it at all. And I haven't had a drink in about 2.5 years. Um,
Wow, not one drink at all.
no, not
Gosh.
one drink. And there's been a lot of opportunity for it, and there's been a lot of
Mm-hmm.
spaces for it. But
Mm-hmm.
what I found is that when I pulled back away from it, I saw how much the culture reinforced it because I wasn't drinking. I was the weird one that was at wine night drinking water or a seltzer. I was the one at dinner who wasn't grabbing the fancy cocktail. It created like a weird other with me.
Hmm.
And I felt that. So anyways, that's my realization, and I don't think I would have had that awakening if I hadn't like seen with my own eyes those bottles. But
So
I think
you
for a lot
needed
of
to
women it gets to a point where
physically,
you can't grab it, you know?
huh? Yeah, it's interesting, and it definitely is a thing. I mean, you see all the time women wearing t-shirts saying, like you say, "Mummy deserves a wine" or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I wonder why, as a society, we're almost encouraging women to do that. Why is that? Because I don't recall seeing like guys. I mean, yeah, you do see tops with, I chug beer or whatever. You do see that, but you're right. It's almost like it's like a celebrated part of motherhood almost, that
Yeah.
you deserve wine every night because you've had such a hard day.
I think for me, what I realize is like it's a commonality that we're all commiserating in the fact that motherhood is
Yes.
hard. And I
Yeah.
think that there's a sense
Yeah.
in motherhood that's very isolating, that you can all commiserate in the fact that, oh, we're all having a hard time. We all need that drink at the end of the night.
Hmm.
And so I think it might be just from a sense of wanting to belong. Maybe that's where it starts. Like it's hard to know. And there's the thing about wanting to escape and have that feeling of being away from yourself for a minute. That's totally valid. I mean, there's been so many times where I've been like, I just need to get out of my own head for a minute, or step away, or run away.
Well, I know,
Motherhood's
I hear
hard.
you. Well, let's just think about the whole at home drinking situation, because
Mhm.
for men, I'm just thinking, for my own husband, if he on a Friday wanted to go and grab a few beers with his colleague, he can just go and do that because
Yeah.
he doesn't have kids to pick up. He that's not part of his day. If I really need him to, he would do it, but generally he's just focusing on his work day, and then so he could go and socialize for an hour with some colleagues in a bar setting. For a lot of women, and particularly mums, we don't have that option. We don't have the option of going out of the home a lot of time to get some of that headspace that you've just mentioned. And so I can totally see why this drinking at home, when the kids have gone to bed, wine culture, it's like a breeding ground for it, because you are kind of trapped in a way, in a physical sense, because you very often are the one that needs to be there to make sure the kids are bathed, they're in bed. And then if you've got younger kids, you can't leave them on their own anyway, so you're not going to go out of the home to get some headspace, so you're going
Yeah.
to create that environment in the home. And I mean, for me, this is not something I have personal experience with. I think looking back, because I was thinking as we were planning this episode, growing up, alcohol was never a big thing in our house. Our mum and dad are not big drinkers, so I was never really around it. And then because I was training to go to ballet school, I didn't even really get into drinking in my teens. And it's not that I wasn't around people that did it. I was. I was also around people that smoked a lot of weed, but I didn't do that myself because it just it didn't appeal to me, and I had other things that I needed to focus on. And so I think I've just taken that approach into adulthood. So I am not a big drinker. I certainly don't drink every evening. I'm not a wine drinker. My husband religiously has wine with his meals every single night. Um, I don't drink it. Just it doesn't interest me, honestly. That's the reason I don't drink it. And then sometimes on a weekend, he's a great cocktail maker, so I will occasionally have a cocktail on a weekend. But I'm such a lightweight, so I have one, and that's it. And actually, even just having one, I don't feel that good the next day. I feel like I've not slept very well. Like my head's
Yeah.
fuzzy. So I'm not a big drinker. That said, I do know people who are very close to me you know, who have issues around this. And when I say issues, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, because these people are very busy. They've got careers, and they've got huge family commitments at home. They've got kids that they are basically responsible for, and there's a lot of stress on their plate. And so on an evening, that's what they do. They have a drink of wine. And this part of me thinks, well, I don't blame you. But then in the same breath, you don't want to be reliant on that as your only way to cope with stress, because for no other reason, honestly, that the health benefits long term are just not worth it.
Yeah.
And but it's definitely a thing. And not just wine. I mean, we're focusing on wine here, but you had someone reach out to you, and their thing isn't
Yeah.
wine, it's smoking weed. And so I think the common denominator here, Christina, from what I'm seeing is, and what I'm hearing, is something just to create a form of release and escapism after a stressful day, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
one
Like an
hour or
unhealthy it's an unhealthy mechanism to kind of
yeah.
deal with the stress, and it comes in many forms, like you said.
Yes.
Mommy wine culture is its own thing. Like there's a lot of society like backing that. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also women who, after their kids go down, they smoke some weed or they
Yep.
vape, or
Yep.
maybe after their kids go down, they binge eat. Like I don't know if I know a lot of women who
So
will gather all the snack foods, sit down and watch Netflix and eat as much as they can. Especially with my prior career and working with people with their health, like
mhm.
it was a thing where like I need that release. I need to eat a whole bag of Doritos or else I don't feel like a person. Like I need to have that space. So I think it's like it's not new. Like the idea of a
No.
mom needing a release. Back in the 60s, it used to be Valium, it used to be uppers and
Mm,
downers and things that you would take. And now
mhm.
it's just gone into this other thing. I think the difference is that that was calling kind of always something that people did, but we didn't really talk about. Versus now,
Mhm.
this is something that's celebrated and encouraged and kind of pushed. I think I'll find a cute like little mug or something, and then I'll see like it says "mommy juice" on it or something at like Home Goods. And I'm like, damn it! Like I like that mug before I saw what it said on it.
But if you think back to whenever there's like a gathering of mums from school, for example, it's
yeah,
always at a bar. I'm thinking
yeah,
about the venues, it's always at a bar. And quite often, I'm the one that isn't drinking as well at those places, because, I mean, I always drive, so I'm always the driver. So I don't like to have a drink if I'm driving, even one, because I think it clouds my judgment and my thinking. But it's always at a bar. So
yeah.
it's never at like a coffee shop, for example. We don't tend to meet, maybe it's because people are working and they've got stuff on. I get it. But we don't, for example, tend to meet at lunchtime or do something at breakfast. It's after work, after the school day, and it's always, without fail, at a local bar.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for
Mm.
also the proximity to the children. Like, it's almost like
Mm.
when men have hobbies, like things like to take them outside the home, like golf, or for instance.
Yes.
Women often have
Yes.
hobbies that
Yeah.
keep them inside the home, like gardening.
Mm-hmm.
It's tradition
Mm-hmm.
that you want to stay close by, so it prevents that
Mm-hmm.
escape. So I think that's why we're seeing this culture phenomenon of like women being encouraged to like have this unwind time, which is fine. Here's the deal: is like any coping mechanism, if it's kept within healthy bounds and you're
Yes.
not becoming unhealthy with it, it's
Yeah.
something that could be totally fine and the average person has no problem with. The problem is there's a lot of people that are susceptible to being addicted to things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like one of our listeners sent a really good point, and I'd love to read it because she talked
Yeah,
about
go ahead.
this thing of it being a slippery slope. So one
Yeah.
of our viewers said, in my opinion, the mommy wine culture is a slippery slope that can lead to full blown alcoholism. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it also shows our kids that mommies require this to feel better, which can in turn lead to addiction and alcoholism in our children. This
Mm.
person specifically partners with people in like private Facebook groups and helps with sobriety encouragement. But she said that in her experiences, mothers in recovery often started with that glass of wine to relax and end up in
Mm-hmm.
rehab on the verge of losing their children because
Mm.
it gets more increased. I know that's extreme, but it's real stuff. So that's her experience as she sees in her line of work. A lot of people started with that one glass and then they have maybe an addictive personality or they get into a space where they need it. And just like with anything, the reason I started going from a glass to 2 glasses to 3 glasses to a bottle is I was
Mm-hmm.
chasing that escape. It no longer was just one glass that gave it to me. I needed that extra. and then the extra, and it just
Mhm.
kept enhancing because my body was getting used to it.
Do you think as well, first of all, can I just say thank you so much to that viewer, that listener who shared that information with us. I'm just so
Yeah,
appreciative of all the feedback that we're getting, and we've had a lot of
so much.
feedback on this particular topic, haven't we? And it's been quite moving actually. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. But I think a lot of it as well is there's a reward element to this. We feel that we need to reward ourselves for getting through a day, frankly. I know I do this. Now, I don't do it in the sense that I drink a bottle of wine or I smoke weed. However, even during the day, if I've, done something well with work, for example, I deserve a latte. I deserve that. I deserve it. I've earned it. So I'll go and get myself a latte. Now, a latte may not be the worst thing in the world. That might be, a great coping mechanism. However, it's still that thing about rewarding yourself. And I think as a mum, sometimes to someone else, to a guy, let's say, what you're rewarding yourself for is something they think you should just be able to cope with. Well, it wasn't like you were overseeing a $10 million contract like I was at work today.
Yeah.
No, but I got my kids to school on time, and I took two meetings. I had two Zoom meetings and they went well. So then I deserve a reward. And I think maybe, and there's nothing wrong with that, because let's face it as well, quite often, being a mom is a thankless job.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot, and if you're not outside the home working, you and I are both working, but quite a lot of the time, we work for ourselves. We're entrepreneurs, we're in business, so we're not necessarily in that corporate structure where you have a boss that's praising you when you do things well. And so I feel the last few years, I haven't been in that office situation, that newsroom environment, which is historically where I would work every day. And I'd
Yeah.
have my editor or whoever telling me that I'd done a good job. And so there isn't anyone to praise me and to give me uh, every quarter we'll have a performance review and tell me how good I'm doing. I don't have that. And I think that for mums, a lot of the time, we are looking out for ourselves. And so maybe, Christina, it's a case that we try and find something that isn't going to be so detrimental to our health and potentially our family dynamic, but that still feels like that gives us a release and the reward we deserve. I don't know. What do you think to that?
Yeah, I think that lack of affirmation in motherhood can definitely lead to you looking for affirmation elsewhere and like
Yeah.
trying to make sure that you're feeling validated in your space. And I've definitely been guilty of like, I'm having a hard day. I'm gonna have a cake pop at Starbucks.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
like
Oh God. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm gonna treat myself. The
Yeah.
problem becomes when treat yourself turns into treat yourself every night, treat yourself, in excess. And
Mm,
I think only you can determine. And there's a lot of people who just, I never felt like I was an alcoholic. I
mm-hmm,
could have stopped. I didn't want to. And I
mm,
think that there's a lot of people that fall in that line of like maybe it's not quite alcoholism, but it's not quite healthy. And to the viewer's point, our children are watching, which is really
yes.
important. It's a great point to make. I'm glad she said that. Because they are learning how to navigate their relationship with food and alcohol from
Mm-hmm,
us, and they're watching everything we do,
mm,
whether we show them intentionally or not. I mean, my child at the time was very tiny, but as they
mm-hmm.
grew, they're going to see the recycle bin full of wine.
Yeah,
you
they are.
know
Yeah.
that's just what it is. And then at that point, what have I done in that space of like, what does that tell them? What's the story that's telling?
Mm-hmm.
And
And
also,
it,
what does
yeah,
it
go on.
feel like to be a child that needs to be escaped from every night from wine? Like,
Hmm.
you're
That's
having such a
interesting.
hard time with me that you're drinking to the point where you're, belligerent or something. Like, are
So
you?
I guess you're thinking more of the older child that's aware of what's going on. I'd never
Yeah,
ever thought of it from a child's point of view. That is such an interesting point to make, Christina, and very valid, because we don't ever want our kids to feel that they're the burden.
yeah,
That why did you have me then, if it's so stressful and it's so terrible that you have to down a bottle of wine at night, why did you want to be a mum in the first place? So I've never thought about it from that point of view. That's a really interesting insight. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in my previous job, something I helped people with was binge eating and kind of handling their relationship with food. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
unlike alcohol in the same sense.
No.
And something I would recommend that they do is when they feel the urge to binge eat,
Mm-hmm.
recognize what feelings are coming up and
Hmm.
write those down. Why? Like, what's the why behind it? Because it's not about the what, it's the why.
Yeah.
And then create alternative things that you can do that bring that same level. So for me, I used to have, still struggle with, the tendency to overeat things when I'm upset. Like I get
Yes.
stressed out and I'm like, oh my God, where are the Reese's pieces?
Yeah,
Like,
I do too. I do too. I forgot to mention that I have a real sweet tooth, so that's another thing that I will do. I
so
I will go for the sweet stuff when I'm feeling that
yes.
way. Yeah.
And so what it is for me is I'm looking for dopamine. I am stressed out
Ah.
and I need some dopamine. I need something to
Mhm.
bring a happy energy to me. So
Mhm.
I wrote a list of 5 to 6 things that bring me dopamine that aren't related to eating or drinking.
Mhm.
And I put that on my fridge at the time. And every time I would get, that urge, I would go to the fridge and be like, what are any of these things? Can I do that instead? Like one of them's like, let's watch Kardashian clips on YouTube because that'll bring me some like mind numbing, like something to distract myself for a second.
Yeah, I get way too many of those on my feed, by the way. I need to start,
Well, I got to
minimizing
keep
those.
up with
But
them.
that's funny. I was going to ask you about that. So you mentioned you write 5 to 6 things that you could
Yeah.
do differently. So
Yeah.
that was one of them. What else do you do?
I take a shower because sometimes like that
Yeah.
can hit the reset for me. Like if I
Mhm.
just jump in and take a quick shower, like 5 minutes or something, and I don't have to rinse my hair, just like getting my body a little bit cleansed so I can kind of
Yeah.
restart.
Yeah.
Um, Go for a walk. Um,
Yes.
Call a
I do
friend.
that. Mhm. Yep.
Um, TikTok.
Any TikTok would be on your list somewhere.
It has to be. It wouldn't be me if it wasn't. Music sometimes can help.
Yep.
Um, And then, if you're still feeling like a little treat, there ain't nothing wrong with a little treat every now and then as long as you're not binge eating for an unhealthy way. So, like,
Oh, yeah.
maybe you're hungry. Like, what do you actually need? Like, listen to your body.
Hmm.
Like,
So, yeah, I love all of those. I do the walk thing. I also do Pilates is my kind of thing. So, I can just do it from the house. I'll just clear a space and do 20 minutes and I feel
yeah,
better just doing that. Tea. Oh God, I've got tea right here. I always have to have it with me. Drinking tea. Actually, that might be one of my addictions. That might
yeah,
not be a good thing I'm encouraging everyone to do. But yeah, I drink tea when I'm stressed. I mean, being from England, we have this keep calm and carry on saying, and that
yeah,
applies to tea. In a
yeah,
crisis, the world can be falling down. But the way to resolve all of that is let's put the kettle on. If there's a
yeah.
crisis in our family and I'm talking to my parents, the first thing my dad will say is, oh, let's make a tea.
Let's
So
grab
we
the
make a
tea.
tea and then somehow we're like more prepared to deal with the crisis at hand.
It's
So yeah,
it's
so I
that
do
though.
that.
It's a mental something that's scratching that itch that you
It
need
it must
scratched.
be. It must be. But yeah, I think definitely if you can, if this is something that you feel you're struggling with and you're listening to this and you're like, that's kind of me. I am drinking too much. I am smoking too much weed and it's impacting my ability to be my best self and therefore your ability to be a good parent. Maybe look at something else that could replace that, that's not going to be as negative in your
Yeah.
life.
And if you're feeling that
Yeah.
way, there's a lot of resources out there for
Yeah.
people that are you don't have to be a full blown alcoholic to realize you have a problem with alcohol or weed or insert substance here
Yes.
or thing here.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are a lot of resources, and so Claire has done so much work and like looking at this stuff from a journalistic perspective, and she's going to be putting some stuff in our show notes and our website and things
Yeah.
like that. Some
I
resources.
sure am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because, this is not something you need to struggle with on your own. There's so much support out there. So, as Christina said, please check out our show notes, check out the website. we'll put some links to some interesting and supportive groups that will be able to help you through. So you're definitely not on your own. Yeah, this has been a good one today, Christina. And, it's the holidays as well. And we didn't mention that during our conversation, but this is a time where there's a lot of alcohol flowing. There's a lot of expectation to be drinking socially right now. And maybe it's just a chance to take a step back and just see what else you can do to replace that not so positive habit.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, Claire, such a good one.
That's a great one. So that brings us to the end of another episode of the Momversation Club.
And if you've enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach even more moms and build a stronger village.
Yeah, it really does. And just remember, we're here for you. And you don't have to be on your own. Together, I promise, we'll figure out where the F that village is at.
See you next time.
Bye.